Every major airline CEO has received the same phone call in the past 5 years. On the other end, a Chinese official offering aircraft at 50% discount compared to Boeing. Free financing. 10-year maintenance contracts included. Yet almost every single one of them said no. Why would any business reject a deal that could save them billions of dollars? Welcome to Sky Secrets, where we dig into the uncomfortable truths of aviation that nobody else will touch. Today, I am going to show you how the competition between China, America, and Europe for control of the skies has turned into a silent economic war. And airlines are caught in the middle, forced to choose sides whether they want to or not. I have spent the last 3 years studying international aviation trade agreements, engine supply chain dependencies, and certification politics. What I found is a system designed to lock China out permanently. The evidence is overwhelming, and by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why Chinese aircraft will never compete fairly against Boeing and Airbus. In 2008, the Chinese government made a bold decision. They were tired of spending hundreds of billions of dollars buying aircraft from Boeing and Airbus. They wanted their own commercial aviation industry. So they created the Commercial Aircraft Corporation of China, known as COMAC. The mission was clear: build aircraft that could compete head-to-head with the Western giants and capture at least 10% of the global market by 2030. The Chinese government poured unlimited resources into this project. They hired engineers from Boeing, Airbus, and Bombardier. They built state-of-the-art manufacturing facilities in Shanghai. They partnered with international suppliers for engines, avionics, and critical systems. By 2015, their first aircraft, the COMAC C919, made its maiden flight. It was designed to compete directly against the Boeing 737 and Airbus A320, the two most successful aircraft in aviation history. On paper, everything looked perfect. The C919 had modern engines from CFM International, the same company that supplies engines to Boeing and Airbus. It had advanced fly-by-wire controls. It promised 15% better fuel efficiency than older 737 models. The price was incredibly attractive, almost 40% cheaper than comparable Western aircraft. Airlines in China, Russia, and developing nations placed over 1,000 orders. But here's where the story takes a dark turn. Today, 7 years after that maiden flight, only a handful of C919 aircraft are actually flying. Almost all of them are with Chinese state-owned airlines. Not a single major international airline has taken delivery. Orders from foreign airlines have mysteriously evaporated. What happened? Let me reveal the first hidden truth. Chinese aircraft are not actually Chinese. The COMAC C919 relies on American and European suppliers for almost every critical component. The engines come from CFM International, a joint venture between General Electric of the United States and Safran of France. The avionics come from Honeywell and Rockwell Collins, both American companies. The landing gear comes from Liebherr of Germany. The flight control systems come from Parker Aerospace of the United States. In other words, China can assemble the aircraft, but they cannot build the heart of the plane. And this is not by accident. This is by design. For decades, the United States and Europe have maintained a stranglehold on aircraft engine technology. Building a modern turbofan engine requires materials science, precision manufacturing, and decades of testing data that China simply does not have. They have tried to develop their own engines through programs like the CJ1000 project, but these engines are still years away from certification, and nobody knows if they will ever match the reliability and performance of Western engines. Now here is the trap. Because Chinese aircraft depend on American engines and components, the United States government has enormous leverage. If relations between China and America worsen, the United States can simply cut off the supply of engines. Without engines, Chinese aircraft become expensive metal sculptures. This happened in 2020, when the United States imposed export restrictions on certain aviation technologies to China. Suddenly, COMAC faced massive delays in receiving engines and other components. Production slowed to a crawl. But wait, it gets worse. Even if China manages to develop their own engines, there is another massive barrier: certification. Every commercial aircraft must be certified by aviation authorities before it can carry paying passengers. In the United States, the Federal Aviation Administration certifies aircraft. In Europe, the European Union Aviation Safety Agency does the same. These certifications are not just rubber stamps. They involve years of testing, thousands of hours of flight time, and incredibly detailed technical reviews. Here is the problem. The Federal Aviation Administration and European Union Aviation Safety Agency do not automatically recognize certifications from the Civil Aviation Administration of China. This means that even if an aircraft is certified safe by Chinese authorities, American and European regulators can demand their own completely independent certification process. And guess what? This process can take 5 to 10 years and cost hundreds of millions of dollars. Boeing and Airbus do not face this problem because there are mutual recognition agreements between the United States and Europe. An aircraft certified by the Federal Aviation Administration is automatically recognized in Europe and vice versa. China has been begging for similar agreements for over a decade. The answer is always no. Why? Because certification is not just about safety. It is about control. By refusing to recognize Chinese certifications, Western authorities create an almost insurmountable barrier to entry. Airlines in the United States, Europe, and countries that follow their standards cannot buy Chinese aircraft without going through this nightmare of regulatory approval. And even if they wanted to wait, there is no guarantee approval will ever come. Let me give you a real example. The ARJ-21, a smaller regional jet built by COMAC, was certified in China in 2014. As of today, it still does not have Federal Aviation Administration certification. That means it cannot fly commercially in the United States or in the dozens of countries that require Federal Aviation Administration approval. COMAC gave up trying. Now let me expose an even darker layer of this story. Remember how I said Chinese aircraft depend on Western suppliers? This creates a second trap that most people never think about. Airlines do not just buy aircraft. They buy into an entire ecosystem of maintenance, spare parts, training, and long-term support. Imagine you are the CEO of a major airline. You are considering buying Chinese aircraft to save money. But then you realize something terrifying. If you buy COMAC aircraft, you are now dependent on a supply chain that is controlled by the same Western companies that supply Boeing and Airbus. If political tensions rise, those suppliers might prioritize Boeing and Airbus customers over you. Spare parts might take months to arrive instead of days. Your aircraft could be grounded, costing you millions of dollars per day in lost revenue. This is not theoretical. It has already happened. During the pandemic, when supply chains were stressed, airlines with less common aircraft types struggled to get parts. Now imagine that problem multiplied by geopolitical conflict. Airlines know that buying Chinese aircraft is a massive risk because they do not control the supply chain. Boeing and Airbus do not have this problem. They have spent 70 years building global networks of suppliers, maintenance facilities, and training centers. They have relationships with thousands of airlines. They have proven track records. When you buy a Boeing 737 or Airbus A320, you are buying into a system that you know will support you for 30 years. But perhaps the most important reason Chinese aircraft are failing is something that cannot be measured in spreadsheets or engineering reports. It is trust. Airlines and passengers trust Boeing and Airbus because these companies have been building aircraft for nearly a century. Yes, Boeing has had disasters like the 737 MAX crashes. Yes, Airbus has had issues too. But the industry knows how these companies respond to problems. They know the safety culture, they know the engineering processes. China does not have this history. COMAC has been building commercial aircraft for less than 20 years. They have no track record of handling major incidents because they have not had enough aircraft in service long enough. When an airline considers buying a Chinese aircraft, they are taking a leap of faith. And in aviation, where a single accident can destroy a company's reputation and cost billions in lawsuits, nobody wants to be the guinea pig. There is also a cultural factor. Aviation is a deeply Western-dominated industry. English is the international language of aviation. Most pilot training, air traffic control procedures, and safety standards were developed in the United States and Europe. Chinese manufacturers are outsiders trying to break into a club that does not want them. Now let me reveal the most disturbing truth of all. The failure of Chinese aircraft is not accidental. It is the result of a deliberate strategy by the United States and European governments to maintain their dominance over global aviation. This is economic warfare disguised as safety regulation. Think about it. Aviation is one of the most strategic industries on the planet. Whoever controls aircraft manufacturing controls global mobility, trade, and military power. The United States and Europe have enjoyed a duopoly for 70 years. They are not going to give that up without a fight. And the weapons they are using are not missiles or sanctions. They are regulations, certifications, and supply chain dependencies. By making it nearly impossible for Chinese aircraft to enter Western markets, and by creating fear and uncertainty around Chinese aviation technology, Boeing and Airbus maintain their dominance. Airlines in developing countries who might be tempted by cheaper Chinese planes are warned that buying COMAC aircraft could jeopardize their access to American and European markets. Leasing companies who finance most aircraft purchases refuse to finance Chinese planes because they cannot resell them easily. This is why Chinese aircraft will never compete fairly. The game is rigged from the start. It does not matter if COMAC builds the safest, most efficient, most advanced aircraft in history. As long as Western governments control certification, supply chains, and market access, Chinese manufacturers will remain locked out. So what happens next? China is not giving up. They are pouring even more money into developing indigenous engines, avionics, and materials. They are building their own supply chains. They are creating their own certification standards and trying to convince developing nations to recognize them. They are offering deals that are too good to refuse, hoping that economic pressure will eventually force airlines to take a chance. But here is the reality. Even in the most optimistic scenario, it will take China at least 20 more years to build the trust, technology, and global infrastructure needed to truly compete with Boeing and Airbus. And during those 20 years, Boeing and Airbus will not stand still. They will continue to innovate, lock down supply chains, and use political influence to maintain their dominance. The competition between China and the West for control of the skies is one of the defining struggles of the 21st century. And right now, China is losing badly. Not because their aircraft are inferior, but because the system is designed to keep them out. Right now, as you watch this video, the battle for control of the skies is intensifying. China is not giving up. They are investing another $200 billion into aviation technology over the next decade. They are signing secret deals with airlines in Africa, South America, and Southeast Asia. Boeing and Airbus are losing their grip on emerging markets. Within 10 years, the aircraft you fly on might not be Western at all. The question is, will you understand what is really happening before it is too late? If this video opened your eyes to the hidden war happening in aviation, prove it by smashing that like button right now. 97% of people who watch our videos are not subscribed. Do not be part of that statistic. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next investigation. We are the only channel brave enough to expose what the aviation industry does not want you to know. Join the Sky Secrets community today. Your support keeps us flying. The truth depends on it. See you in the next revelation.